All right, indicator 7, graphing vertical and horizontal lines. And just as a very quick review, vertical goes up and down and only touches the x-axis. Horizontal goes side to side and only touches the y-axis. And the horizontal lines, you can remember that by it looks like the horizon, okay? All right, so let's look at these first examples. You don't have to write down. This is just kind of a review from last week as far as what we've been graphing so far. And let's hope this actually writes where I want it to write. Yes. Okay, so our x-intercept here, let me make that a lot bigger. Our x-intercept here is +2. We put a point at +2. Our y-intercept is 3. 3, we put a point at +3, and we connect them. Okay, pretty straightforward graphing intercepts. And again, you don't have to put these in your 3-ring binder. This is just a review. This one is standard form. And to graph in standard form, you have to either find the intercepts or put it in y equals mx plus b. This one is not a good candidate for finding the intercepts because it doesn't all come out even. So we're going to move some things around. When we do minus 8x and minus 8x, make that thinner. Then we get negative 5y equals negative 8x plus 15. And then we divide that negative 5 off of all 3 terms. I'm kind of getting lazy here, putting it under there once, but hopefully we've done it enough that you know everything. All 3 terms gets that division. So we get y equals negative and negative is going to go positive. So our slope is 8/5 x. And then 15 divided by negative 5 is negative 3. And again, we've got our y-intercept, which is what we graph first. And then we use our slope to move, and so we're going to go up 8 and over 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and over 5. And there's our other point. And then we connect those 2 lines, or those 2 points, with a nice straight line. Yeah, it's not bad for freehand, isn't it? All right. And then you can ignore that little x there. That's not supposed to be there. Y equals mx plus b. I'm not going to go over that one. I think we're pretty clear on how to graph that. Start with your b, which is your 3, and then up 2 over 2, or up 1 over 2. So I'm not going to do that one. This one is just the same from last week. I just put it up here because there's still an x and there's still a y, right? So this tells me that it is going to still have a slope. It's going to have a y-intercept. It's going to be a diagonal line. It's not going to be horizontal or vertical because it has an x and a y. Okay, it has both. And anytime a line has both, and I don't care if it's in standard form, point slope form, slope intercept form, if it has an x and a y, it's going to be a diagonal line of some grade, right? It might be a really steep one. It might be just barely an incline or decline, but it is going to be a diagonal line. And it is going to have an m and a b. It has to. Okay, so here it has an x and a y, so it has to have an m and a b. There's our m. What's our b? +0. It's not out there, but it's out there. Because it has an x and a y, it has to have an m and a b. Okay, there's no other option. So our b that we're going to graph is y equals 0, which is right at the origin. And then our slope or our movement tells us to go up 4 and +3. Positive and positive move. I could also drop 4 and go backwards 3 because 2 negative moves keeps it positive. And my line looks like that. And again, with all of these that I've graphed so far, right, with 1, 2, and 4, the line increases or decreases by some slope, right? And some are steeper than others. And if you have a slope of 1, right, you're going to have a lot less of a steep hill, but it's still going to be some sort of incline or decline. The slope causes that incline or decline. All right, so now let's look at vertical and horizontal lines. So we're going to do these two first. Notice, first of all, what's missing. What isn't here? An x. So this should tell you right off the bat, this is going to be a special case. You don't have an X and a Y, so you're not going to worry about an M and a B. Okay, you only worry about that if you have both. So with just a Y equals 1, let's go with just the information that we have right now. Right now, all we know is that there is a point at Y equals 1. Well, this is your Y axis, right? So at Y equals 1, I'm going to put a point. And because this is a Y only, it means it's going to be a horizontal line. So my line is going to cut right through the Y at 1. And look like that. Okay? Horizontal lines have only Y's. Y's, skies, horizon, however you want to think about it. Okay? But when it's a Y only, it only touches the Y axis. It cannot touch the X axis because it doesn't have an X in the equation, which means it cannot dip down and touch that X axis. And if that helps you remember it, okay? Let's look at the next one. Y equals 3. Well, my only point I know is Y equals 3. Okay, Y equals 3. So that's where you start because that's the only point you're given. It does not have an X, which means it cannot dip down toward that X axis. So it has to stay running parallel to it. So it has to be a horizontal line. Okay? And if it's a negative, it's fine, right? You just put it, so I'll do it in a different color here. Let's do it in pink. So if I had Y equals negative 6, that's okay. Go to the Y axis down here at negative 6. And again, always, because there's only a Y, it'll never ever go up toward the X. Your line would be like this. And of course, you always put your arrows on your lines because they go on and on forever. Okay? Now, something I want to show you. We need to talk about slope because not every single line has a slope. We know every diagonal line has a slope, right? There's a rise over run that helps us get up to our next point. But let's look at the two Y values the blue one, the top one that I did. I'm going to put another random point on this same Y equals 3 line, and I'm going to put it right here. Okay, because it's a point on the line. Now, if I want to look at my slope of this line right here, to get from the first point I plotted, that blue one, over to the second one I plotted, the green one, what's my rise? 0. I didn't rise, right? I didn't go up or down. I just went straight over. So my rise is 0. What's my run? 1. And it doesn't matter if my run is 1 or 100. It doesn't matter because what's anything with a 0 on top? 0. So if you were asked the slope of number 6, the answer is 0. Okay? The answer is 0. So all horizontal lines have a 0 slope. Couple of different memory tricks to remember this. One is the word, sorry, my pen turned off. One is that the word horizontal, how do you spell it? There we go. The word horizontal has an O. Okay, that's one way to remember it. The other way, this was something that one of my college professors showed me, was if you look at two horizontal lines next to each other, what do they make? Wow, they make nothing because that didn't write anything. There we go. Let's try that. Nope. I don't know why the highlighter doesn't work. It really bugs me. There we go. If you look at these two, is it going to let me do it? Nope. All right. I'm going to just X that out. I'm sorry. I was hoping to be able to use the highlighter, but it didn't work. All right. So if you look at the two horizontal lines, if you connect them, what do they make? They make a Z. That's what I was trying to show you. I was trying to use a highlighter, but that just wasn't working. So that's just another way of, it's just a little memory trick to remember, because you are going to have to know the slope of a horizontal line versus the slope of a vertical line. Horizontal lines have a 0 slope, okay? They also have the word horizontal also has a Z in it. So whatever works to help you remember it. Okay. Now we're going to look at a little bit different. What's missing here? Yeah, there's no Y. So the only information that we're given right now is that X equals 1. So on the X axis, I'm going to put a point at X equals 1. And there is no Y, which means it can never ever angle toward the Y axis. So our line just shoots straight up and down right through that point of X equals 1. And because there is no Y, it never ever shoots toward the Y axis. It runs parallel to it. It'll never touch it. And if you look at number 8 here, you've got X equals -4. Well, again, right, this is our X axis. And here's X equals -4. And it doesn't have a Y, so it cannot angle toward the Y axis at all, which means it just runs straight up and down right through X equals -4. And that's the only point it touches as far as on the axes. And so your X lines, let's think about what this slope means. So I'm going to put another point just randomly on here somewhere. And we're going to look at, if we're looking at slope, we know slope is rise over run. Well, to get from the red line to the green, or the red point to the green point, how far did I go? I rose what? I rose 3. To get from the red to the green, how far to the left or right did I run? I didn't. I didn't run at all. Can you have a 0 in math in the bottom? That's a big math foul, right? Do you remember what we called this last week when there was a 0 in the bottom of a fraction? You're looking at me like I'm crazy. Undefined. You cannot have a 0 in the bottom of a fraction in math. I don't know what math genius came up with that rule or why it's the case, but it's a math rule. If you have a 0 on top, it's okay. It just reduces to 0, which is why our horizontal lines have a slope of 0. It's an actual number, right? Our X lines, or our vertical lines, they do not have a slope. Their slope is called undefined. All right, and the little memory trick that I was given was if you put a second line here next to the other one and it makes an N, and then you can write undefined using the N. That was just kind of the little memory trick that my college professor gave us. So if you are asked to identify the slope, I'm going to kind of zoom out here a little bit. Comparing number 6 and number 8, okay? Number 6 is the horizontal lines. They have a slope of 0, okay? And those are the Y's. The Y's always are horizontal. They have a 0 slope. The X only is a vertical line, and a vertical line has an undefined slope. All right, now I want to talk about just 2 other quick special cases. One is number 9. I have a lot of people look at number 9 and say, oh, that's a special case. Like that's weird. That doesn't have any of the information you need. Do you have an X and a Y? If you have an X and a Y, Jake, what does that mean you have to have? If you have an X and a Y, you have to have a what? An M and a B. If you have an X and Y, you have to have an M and a B, because this, even though there's a lot of stuff, quote, missing, it's there, but it's not there. As long as you have an X and a Y, this tells you it will be a diagonal line. So you have to have an M and you have to have a B. What's my M here? What's in front of that X? Yeah, 1 over 1. And where's my B? 0. If you have an X and a Y, you have an M and a B, always and forever. If you just have an X or you just have a Y, those are your special vertical and horizontal lines. And I want to look at one other special case here, and we're going to actually do 2 on one graph. We're going to do y equals 0, and we're going to do x equals 0. Okay, and I'm going to do them in two different colors, so hopefully it stands out. So let's look at y equals 0. Y equals 0. Where is the 0 on the y-axis? It's right at the right at the origin, right? Which way do y lines go? You still have to draw a line. You can't just put a point. You have to have a line because this is a line. Which way do y ones go? Nope. Y, sky, horizon, okay? It's going to go this way. When y equals 0, your point is at the origin and your line is horizontal. If your x equals 0, where do you think your point goes? Still at the origin, but your x lines go up and down. So if it's x equals 0 or y equals 0, your origin point is going to be 0, but your lines are either going to be horizontal or vertical. All right. Let me stop this real quick, and then I'll hand out. If you guys at home open up the assignment through Cami, make sure you show all your work and email me if you have any questions.